time. The fact that he just got back on the field last year was a positive for him. I mean, 14 strikeouts per 9 innings. Still could be wild at times. He walked a few too many. He had 7 wild pitches, which led the majors. But he is a monster. And is it kind of funny how not only did Tampa Bay absolutely rook the Pirates in the Chris Archer trade, but now they have Chris Archer back too. If they can make something out of him, Meadows hit a home run today. So if you're a Pirates fan, you're not going to want to watch a lot of Tampa Bay Rays games.
Or maybe you do. I don't know.
Yeah. And, even with the whole walk problem, his whip over the last 2 seasons is 1.01. That's with a bad walk problem. He gets rid of the walks. This is a sub-1 whip guy. He's going to get you ratios, going to get you strikeouts. Fantastic fantasy player, and I think great real-life player as well.
I also believe in the internal development and the brain trust. There's something they do right with Tampa Bay pitchers, which is why so many breakouts happen on their watch. I think a lot of that is organizational.
Yeah, and I think that he's going to pitch innings because, you can't. I know the Rays like to, have only go 5 innings, but there's no Snell, there's no big name guys. He's the front guy. You need to have some reliable starter pitch innings. Do the math. You can't break up innings as much as you like to. You need somebody to eat some innings, and I think Glasnow's the right guy to do it, especially if he's efficient like he was today. They pulled him, it's the opening day, they pulled him 6, but he could have easily gone 8 innings with only 100 pitches today. He was great. All right, let's do a quick waiver wire. First waiver wire of the year, and everyone just give a player that you think is under-owned that first week you should probably scoop up pretty soon. Start with you, Scott. Who's a waiver wire pick for you?
Yeah, I mentioned the 2 guys I mentioned earlier, Grossman of the Tigers, and actually a lot of guys on the Tigers are probably underrepresented, and Bednar in Pittsburgh, who I think is going to be a wipeout reliever even if he's not a saves guy. Those are 2 guys I would certainly look for.
All right, move in.
I have actually 2 Red Sox to look for. Kike Hernandez. He's supposed to be batting leadoff. That means he's going to score a lot of runs in that lineup, especially if he's batting right behind Devers and behind Bogarts, and hopefully a healthy J.D. Martinez, who will do well again. Kike Hernandez is only owned in 27% of CBS leagues right now, and another guy in that lineup is Hunter Renfroe. He's projected to have more than 25 home runs. Yes, he'll have a not great average, like a 238 average, but he may not be splitting time. He's only owned in 26% of leagues and also in CBS, and you know what? He's a guy who, if you need a power guy, you weren't able to get one at the end of the draft, he's available in a lot of leagues.
3 quick batters and 2 closers for me. Jazz Chisholm, available in 30% of CBS leagues, batted 6 today, gonna play, gonna steal bases, by the way. How about Josh Rojas for Arizona, 25% owned in CBS, led off today for Arizona. That's a good sign. And how about Randall Grichuk? He's playing now center. He's the center fielder now that Springer's out. He led the Blue Jays in RBIs last year. He actually had the game-winning hit today, or what turned to be the game-winning hit. Very undervalued there. And a couple of closers, pick him up while you can. Hector Neris, he was Joe Girardi announced he's a closer. He's less than 50% owned on CBS. Pick him up, pay something for him, and a little bit deeper. Emmanuel Clase, I think he's going to be the closer and get the most saves in the Indians this year. Karinchak came in today when the team was down 3. There's no reason to think that Karinchak's the guy. Karinchak walks way too many people. Wittgren just doesn't have the stuff to be a stopper. Clase throws 99 miles an hour. Got great action on his pitches. 60% ground ball rate, which he's done all his minors career. It's going to be Clase, who's the prize from the Kluber trade, I believe.
Let me sneak in 2 more guys. Both the players I mentioned are under 5% rostered in Yahoo, so there may be some people listening who they don't need to dig that deep. Miguel Cabrera, by the Baseball Savant expected stats, should have had a much better average last year than he had. He hit the ball much better than the average reflects. Hit a home run opening day. He's playing some first base, and a lot of times hitters don't engage or hold their offensive value as well when they're asked to DH all the time. Even if Cabrera isn't a great fielder, you can kind of hide him at first base. I think that might lead to maybe a renaissance season where he hits about 270. It hits something between 20 and 25 home runs. He's probably going to hit 25 home runs on the pace he was on last year, and he's not a 250 hitter. He's 10% rostered in Yahoo. And a pitcher who's 30% rostered, again, just walks and strikeouts leading you to good places. Logan Webb, and he was getting snapped up left and right in all the industry leagues, but he's still only 30% rostered in Yahoo, so in a common standard public league, you can probably still get your hands on him. I think he's going to be a very reliable, one of those mixed league starters. He's not going to win the league for you or anything, but I think he might be good enough that you end up using him most of the season as like your 5, your 4, your 6, somewhere in there, just a reliable arm. Again, let's trust the walks and strikeouts rate can become relevant to us quickly. I know it's spring training and you have to throw a lot of grains of salt with that, but when I see that kind of walk strikeout rate, I think that's worthy of a speculative pickup right away.
I like it. Let's do one mailbag question, really pertinent for the today. Badger Maniac says, referring to Luis Castillo today, who gave up some 7-8 runs in his outing today. It's a bad start. In his league, he says, we draft on this coming Saturday, but you get to keep the stats for all the Thursday to Sunday games before roster moves can make. Meaning, if you would draft Luis Castillo, you would be getting him, but you would have all of his stats that appeared today, which were obviously not good. And, of course, that affects what you would pay. So he says, how much would you reduce his auction price in being consideration of what he did today? It's a very interesting question. Any thoughts, Scott?
It's a great question. It's funny. One of the concerns, we talked about this on the Breakfast Table podcast in our last edition. Michael Salfino and I were wondering how much Eugenio Suarez playing shortstop would affect the Reds pitchers. And lo and behold, first couple of innings, Suarez, he screwed up a double play that would have gotten Castillo out of a jam, and then he made another error, I think, in the second inning. Castillo certainly didn't pitch well, and he has to own that. But it's really hard to actually put a pinpoint on how much would you take down his value. A lot of it would come down to, I've played in leagues before where you drafted a few days into the season, and a lot of times you would have the option of starting somebody or reserving somebody. If you could reserve Castillo and not have to take the tax of these 8 earned runs, then I would say just pretend this didn't happen. I would say value him the way you did a week ago. I don't think anything's changed. If you have to accept the beating that he took, if the rules mandate that he must be in your lineup, then I think just it has to have some value to you, a couple of bucks down. But my big takeaways here is I don't think there's anything wrong with Luis Castillo. And I think there's a decent chance that the Suarez experiment is not going to last that long. I don't think the Reds are. I think it's a short leash on it. And if there's more hiccups in April, I don't think Suarez will be playing shortstop on May 1st.
Yeah. Anything to add, Ruben?
Yeah, I don't think you can go by one game. I think you just have to live with those stats. I mean, back in 2015, Jacob deGrom lasted 2 2/3 against the Phillies. He gave up like 8 runs. Does that mean he's not worth having in your roster? I don't think so. A couple of years ago, Tuffy Rhodes, this is going way back, he hit 3 home runs off of Gooden on opening day. If people drafted after that, were you going to draft Tuffy Rhodes for more than he was? And what about the Japanese games? When there were Japanese games prior to the other games, like a week before, and there were drafts after that. Remember how much Hunter Strickland went for after those games after he had 2 saves? Were those 2 saves really worth the value that you spent on in the auction or in the drafting? I don't think so. I think you just leave it the way it is, keep it, because you're still going to get the great Luis Castillo. And you know what? Maybe Luis Castillo got the bad one out of his system already, and he's good the rest of the year. You don't want to miss out on that.
Yeah, the only concern is if you think that it's injury related, that something was wrong. If you think that, then you're going to drop him quite a bit. If you don't think it was that it was just a bad day, Suarez messed him up, whatever it is, you're pretty much going to draft him at full price. I will say, though, that the shallower the league, maybe you want to drop him a little bit because in a deeper league, the ratio beatings won't hurt you as much. In a shallower league, it will hurt you more because the ratios are all going to be better. And you can the replacement level is going to be higher anyways. So I'd probably tilt a little bit dropping him in shallow leagues. Deep leagues, I think it might be a buying opportunity because you might get a small discount where it's worth it to take, even rostering the 80 RA over 3 innings today.
Let's not forget Brandon Woodruff, Yu Darvish, Clayton Kershaw, Kyle Hendricks, Jack Flaherty. Anybody who fired up their baseball package to watch those guys today was frustrated. I mean, Flaherty had 1 million runs in his back pocket and couldn't get out of the 5th inning. Hendricks was down 2-0, 2 batters into the game. Isn't Brian Hayes just a really fun player? Yeah. I think a lot of people were in on Woodruff before the season. We've talked earlier about Kershaw being a Cy Young candidate. Obviously, Yu Darvish is terrifically talented. These guys, they're creatures of habit. They have routines. Some pitchers, again, you want to try to figure out the why. I want to know. I didn't watch the Reds game closely. I would want to try to get a report on where was Castillo's velocity at. Was he dealing with a blister problem? Was there a pitch he wasn't confident in? Is there anything granular we can point to that maybe? And you can get tripped up with that stuff sometimes, but at least where was the velocity at? Some guys, maybe Kershaw didn't like pitching in Colorado because it was cold today, stuff like that. There's a lot of big name pitchers who aren't going to be on top of their games when the season starts. We just have to live with that on some level.
Yep, I agree. It's a very good approach. All right, Ruvain, let's do a quick injury update. What do you got today?
Okay, we'll start with Nate Pearson, who's still dealing with a groin injury. He's still just doing long tossing. He still doesn't have a scheduled bullpen session set up, so he may still be out for a while. Shohei Ohtani was dealing with a blister during spring training, but he seems to be well now, but that's something to watch for because blisters can and do reoccur. Sonny Gray is on the IL right now. They said he only may miss a couple of starts due to his back. That's also something to watch because backs can flare up, especially when it's colder weather. That's something to watch for. Ji-Man Choi had knee surgery, so they know that he'll be out for at least a couple of weeks, so you may want to pick up someone like a Yandy Diaz who may get more playing time over there at first base. George Springer, at the end of spring training, they were saying he was only day-to-day with the oblique, and now he went on the IL for it. I did mention before that non-pitchers average 35 days on the IL with an oblique injury. That's something to watch for. I'm not even going to mention Eloy because I think everyone in the entire world knows what's going on with Eloy Jimenez, that he's going to be out for 4 to 5 months with that pectoral surgery. Eduardo Rodriguez, a guy who you and Ariel, we were both very high on. He's dealing with dead arm, and he's starting off the year on the IL. That's nothing to be overwhelmingly concerned with. I think they're just managing him, making sure they don't do any permanent damage to him. Kyle Lewis, the reigning Rookie of the Year for the Seattle Mariners, will start the year and has started the year on the IL with a deep bone bruise in his knee. Taylor Trammell was named the starting center fielder. He's an interesting guy to watch because he was also a very highly touted rookie, a prospect and everything. That's something to watch. Robbie Ray, this is a little bit lower down. Robbie Ray will begin the season on the IL, which is retroactive to March 29th. He was diagnosed with a bruised elbow. Blue Jays manager Charlie Montoya actually said that TJ Zook, I don't even know what that is going to start in his place, and there's no real timetable for when Robbie Ray will come back. And another actually injury from today, Adam Hazley was pulled with hamstring tightness from today's game for the Phillies. He was replaced with Roman Quinn. For all those people who had Adalberto Mondesi, you want a steals guy, if Roman Quinn gets playing time, he may be that fill-in guy for that month, for that couple of weeks that you can use to fill in for those stolen bases.
Great piece of advice there. All right. Well, comes to the end of our show. This is a great one. So many good topics and points and viewpoints. And Scott, one of the things I love about you is just that your process of, the way you think about things, that you're thinking at a much higher level, and not just the nitty gritty, but the how and the why. And really appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, and kudos to you guys for all the success you've had, and I wish you a fun and hopefully a healthy fantasy baseball season.
Thank you. Why don't you just tell everybody where we can see your work and follow you?
Sure. Proud member of the Yahoo Fantasy family. I've been there 12 years now. It'll be 13 years this summer. I'll be writing a closing time article, which is basically a wrap of everything that happened the previous day in fantasy, about 3 or 4 days a week. And you can catch me on Twitter if you're over there. I'll link to my work, and we can talk about any number of things. I'm a fan of all sports. I'm a golf fan. I'm a hockey fan. I'm certainly a huge baseball fan. So if you want to talk about music, sports, life, Scott_Pianowski on Twitter. And again, my work is at Yahoo Sports.
Awesome. Ruvain, how about you?
You can follow me on Twitter at MLB Injury Guru, where I tweet out injury updates on a daily basis, how long they're going to be out for, giving my medical opinion, and who's going to replace them, how well they're going to do, and whether they're going to last for that long. I also have a weekly article for Rotoballer discussing these injuries a little bit more in depth.
All right, final ATC projections are up on Fangraphs, Sportsline, and on Rotoballer, which are the sites that I write for. So please check them out, and you can follow me on Twitter at ATCNY. It's only 5 letters, so hopefully you can remember that, ATCNY. And, of course, you can listen to me every week here on the show, the Beat the Shift podcast. Once again, thank you so much, Scott Pianowski of Yahoo Sports, for coming on the show. And from all of us here at Beat the Shift, we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Beat the Shift podcast presented by Fangraphs. Follow us on Twitter at beat_the_shift.